Could we get, just by show of hands, how many people here are from Guelph or Kitchener-Waterloo, the region? In other words, not the Torontonians. Awesome.
Oh, we're not in Toronto anymore, Toto.
It's a real pleasure to be here, and I'm just going to orient you to our place and us. So, I guess it was almost 12 years ago we bought this hayfield, and our vision was to build an organic farm. So these are pictures of our place. We've been building constantly over that 11 years. And we go to markets and sell on the roadside and whatnot. It's absolutely wonderful. So Marie, stand up. She's the chicken queen. So we're both urbanites, and we were in corporate world for a long time. And she wanted to look after animals desperately for most of her life. So wanted to get out of the city, and there she is, living the dream, feeding chickens. I had a slightly different cant. I also wanted to get out of the city, but I wanted to see how close to carbon zero we could get and really shrink our footprint. And so the idea was to get out into a property that we could actually make that happen. We were, I think, 6.5 years looking for the property. It's not easy to find, as many of you probably know. So I saw Evan earlier, Evan Ferrari. eMerge had us on their efficient home tour, so about 5 years ago, I guess. This is a photo from their website. I thought it would be a good place to start. We have about a 1,400 square foot bungalow. Ben said it was too big. We kept pushing back. We have oodles of windows. Ben said probably too many, but we still put them in. We have an ICF foundation. It's Straw-bale, I should have mentioned that, which is what, about our 45-ish, yep. And then they just kept blowing cellulose into the ceiling, so we think we have about R60 up there somewhere. And then we replaced the shingles a couple years ago with steel, and I'm glad we did. And it's actually made a difference in terms of the cooling of the house in the summertime. So that was a nice thing to have. Okay, so how do we run the house? Well, we heat with this beautiful wood stove in the winter, that's it. We cool with the windows in a fan in the summertime. And then I think by code we had to have an HRV, if I recall, so that's how we defunkify the air. And actually we don't run it that often because we have the windows open quite a bit, except in the wintertime. So I'm going to give you a little context. Why the heck did we go for Straw-bale? What are we really doing? Because it's not just environmental. So I'm going to start with energy, and this goes back early into my career. So this would be early 80s as an actuary, and I started to become aware of the story of energy in our society. And it was really the oil crisis in the 70s. Partly because of an embargo, but partly because the US hit their peak oil in the 70s, and their production has declined since then. It caused all kinds of social and economic turmoil. And I paid attention to that. So I wanted to use my actuarial training, which is really the science of assessing long-term risks, and marry that up with this passion and curiosity and my obsessively curious mind to figure out how does the world really work and what does this mean. Okay, so when you start peeling the onion on the oil and energy story, you can see that it's actually tightly woven energy, our economy, and the environment. You can't really separate or parse those things out, and our our modern world. And for those who don't know, these are black swans. And in the last couple of decades, black swans seem to be popping up all over the place. And does everybody know what a black swan is? So basically, these are known and unknown risks that can come to bite you in nasty ways. So I'm not going to go through all this stuff, but we are surrounded by a flock of black swans. So in addition to being environmentally friendly, it's really an adaptive strategy, because I think we're now experiencing a fairly fundamental change in what our society is going to look like and how we're going to live in the future. So you might recognize Maslow's hierarchy of needs here, and I really play in the base a lot of that. And so in the base, you would have things like energy, food, water, and shelter. So I focus about 2/3 of my time on that. I'm part of Transition Guelph, if those of you familiar with the transition movement globally. And that's part of what, it's really the mission of that organization, is to help communities transition to this new place. So I like looking at this because I think we need to have personal and community mitigations for things like the shortages. You don't experience that in the construction industry. Imagine you guys are up sleepless nights wondering about supply chains. Rationing, we're not there yet, but certainly grocery store shelves are conspicuously empty at times. Inflation is starting to really bite, especially over in Europe. I'd hate to be over there trying to pay for electricity or energy right now. Economic collapse is something we have to think about. The debt load in our society is through the roof. And the environmental devastation, of course, is, it's just, it's sickening to see what's going on. So anyways, that's the doom and gloom part. What we wanted to do with our property and the way we live is to share and inspire others to try and get them on the journey to doing similar things. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the Straw-bale house and how it's paid off for us. And this is just a word cloud, and these are some of the things aesthetically and emotionally that come to mind when we think about our home. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a very healthy house. When people come, it's welcoming, and it's obviously a conversation piece. It is inspiring, quite honestly. And Ben, even though you didn't want us to put so many windows in, the sunlight is absolutely amazing. I like the environmentally friendly aspect of it, and it's sustainable. And I mean that in terms of, I expect it to be here for many generations to be enjoyed. And it's a robust system. We don't hear about robust much anymore in our society. It's all about efficiency and low price. And I think we need to start looking at robustness a lot more in just about everything we do. Okay, so stealing directly from Evan and eMerge, they did a lot of work. I think, Evan, you probably have the most complicated spreadsheet I've seen to calculate the energy usage of the homes that were on the tour. And you can see on the left graph that you go from, I think those are in those gigajoules, yeah, gigajoules home per year. So Guelph average 124, and our home clocked in at 24.3. So that's an 80% improvement in the overall usage of energy. So that's heating, water usage, and our electrical usage as well. So it's fairly comprehensive. And then Evan also did the calculation there on the CO2 emission savings. Same thing, 80% improvement. That's spectacular from my perspective. And I'll talk a bit more about why I think it's actually a sweet spot. Okay, so annual operating costs for our house. We use about 1.5 bush cords of wood to heat through the winter, and that $750, I think, was 2022 costs. So say $750 to heat our home for the whole year. We use about $400 in electricity. I cheated there because I excluded the delivery costs, and anybody who lives out in the country, the majority of your costs are actually delivery. It's not usage, but I included below the line there, Hydro One, so you could see the all-in costs. I also forgot to include annual maintenance. It's not a lot, so you can throw in an extra $1,000 just for routine maintenance. But you just can't beat the $1,150 a year to run a house, like a 1,400 square foot bungalow. That's pretty darn good. Okay, so part two here, the payoff part two. Just reiterating what Emerge had put together. The straw for me is amazing because it's sustainable, it's a renewable resource, it's so friendly, it grows potentially right in your backyard, it's local. So it's really amazing from that perspective, and I love the fact it has very low embedded energy in it. In fact, the whole house, other than the ICF foundation, is probably extremely low embedded energy in it. It's a high quality, built to last home, and we spend more money on quality things because it's worth it in the long run, and we believe in quality. I've talked about the aesthetics, and the rounded window corners, just amazing with the window seats. And I've talked about that. So for me, you see we've got about that 80% efficiency gain. And Ben and I've talked a little bit about the premium of building the Straw-bale home over, say, a custom conventional built home. So take 10% as an approximation. It's good enough for me as a consumer. For a 10% premium to get an 80% efficiency gain is pretty much the sweet spot for me. So as I say there, optimal Pareto, I think so. You're getting to that 80-20 that's looking very attractive. I'm just going to pause on this slide for a second. I'm just going to encapsulate that Pareto thing. So, talking about the goals that we had moving to the country and Straw-bale, what we've got is a pretty affordable home that has low embedded energy, is highly energy efficient, it's environmentally friendly, and it's built to last. So for me, when you're balancing all of those things, this feels like a really good place to land. So I'm just going to end off with this payback period. This is a tool that we used extensively in my corporate life to assess large projects to see how they stacked up with other large projects and decide whether to go forward or not. So to set up the payback period, just use the cost of our home as it was 10 years ago, I guess. But let's say it was a $400,000 build, and then you add that $40,000 as the premium for the Straw-bale and some of the other efficiency gains that we get with the passive design and the ICF foundation and whatnot. So $440 in total cost, and then in 2023, let's say a conventional home costs about $2,500 a year to run. I kind of just picked that out of the air. I didn't do the research, so I would challenge anybody who in the industry who wants to maybe explore this tool bit to do some research on this. But if you apply the 80% savings that we get from our home, then we would be saving $2,000 a year in running that home. So let's now layer in the payback period with some inflation rates on energy, because largely running the home is an energy story. And I've just picked arbitrarily a few inflation rates. So we go 0, 5%, 10%, 25, and 100%. So I'm going to just put the caveat out there. As an actuary, I'm a geek, and I like to play on the margins of any distribution, because that's usually where the fun stuff happens. So 0 is kind of conservative. You could go below 0 in deflation, but that's one end. 100% or more, hyperinflation, you go, that seems like a highly unlikely event. Well, I think Europe might be experiencing close to that right now, so I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. And to me, payback at that point is meaningless. If you've got a home that's this efficient, it's priceless. You can't, you might not be able to heat your home otherwise. So I threw this together just as an exercise. It may not be something that excites you, but for me, this was a tool that helped get my head around what is the value of this house in an energy inflation environment, and I think it really pays off. So even if you say a 10% energy inflation rate, you pay off in about 11 years. That's not too bad, right? Okay, I think I'm going to wrap up there, but I've got to say you guys are doing amazing stuff. This is the future. If we could find ways to help people retrofit their homes to get even close to some of these savings, they're going to thank you down the road, and not too far down the road. And so keep up the great work. I love what you're doing. I'm a bit of an advocate for Evolve because they built our house, and I like to try to get other people interested in this. So thank you all for what you do, and thank you for the opportunity.